getting into deep role playing. Right now we're coming into we're in the third month. So I want to make sure we are all on freaking point. So what I'm going to do real quick is yesterday we went through a pretty good window training, went through some product training. Scott, what is a takeaway yesterday that we went through that, you would hope that the group would have taken away?
A deeper understanding of the mechanics of windows, what makes them energy efficient, and what are weak points in other products which can create our opening to make us a no-brainer.
Okay. And then what are some of those no-brainers? And then let me ask you a question. When should we be breaking out that piece of insulation?
So you can break out the insulation early on when you're, after you've done inspecting the windows and now you've gained permission to start presenting. And you can use that as a prop when you're emphasizing your points in regards to energy efficiency. Argon, what is really argon doing? You can explain the gas and everything else, but hey, it's acting just like insulation, and you can use that to drive that point home. So well before your light kit. A big one that I learned yesterday, a specific thing, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to use it yesterday, but I'm looking forward to using it, is the edge delete benefit. That finally came into clarity for me yesterday, and I'm looking forward to using it.
Yeah, very cool. Hey, Gary, OG, we had talked last night real quick. Why don't you talk about a little bit about your aha moment yesterday? And I was pretty excited to hear your voice last night on that.
Well, like I said, I wish I could report that I sold it, but it was a good opportunity because I haven't run a whole heck of a lot of windows dream style. I've been, I don't know, just a mishmash of different things. But when Dustin was able to go through all the just the more finely tuned thing as opposed to just the keynote, why the sash is built, the edge delete, of course, but where to bring in the insulated piece of glass, because I always just brought in the light kit, I didn't know anything better. So then I used it more of a prop, and I've always talked about the R12, R15 in the walls, but I really emphasized it, held that up. Just a lot of things made a lot more sense to me. I was able to put it together, had a heck of a shot for 3 hours, and before I wouldn't have had that opportunity because I could just take those little nuggets and extrapolate and add on to those particular things. So it was exciting.
Good. So it's cool to see when the light kicks on, right? And no matter what product line that we look at and what product line we choose, whether it's bass, whether it's windows, you got to study your stuff, right? The more you study your stuff, the more you study your install, the more of an expert you are, right? All the stuff we teach, with need commitment, the trust commitment, the questions we ask, they're all great, right? And you want to become an expert in the product line of it. But if we don't basically know, if we know too much about the product, it can become all about the product. And we don't want it to become all about the product. We want to be why what we're talking about is relevant to what you got going on here. Okay? Because nothing I do, whether I'm talking about the bath, whether I'm talking about the window, nothing I talk about is relevant unless it has to do with what's important to them. If it doesn't have to do what's important to them or what they could be going through, then again, we're just talking to talk. And that's not really moving you towards the sale. It's moving you away from the sale, right? So what's the biggest conception that people want, right? Why is the Better Business Bureau call us the most complained about industry? with the Better Business Bureau, right? We have to make sure we're making a big deal, which is why, like I shared yesterday, when you're on your inspection, where should this be? Should be where, Mike? In your bag. In your bag, right? Let me ask you, yesterday, did everybody carry this on your inspection with you on the window side of it?
Yeah.
I mean, so the nature of this beast is, right? This is telling a story of something that they can understand. This is like insulation. This is bad insulation, right? Again, you tear the wall out, you're going to open it up, you're going to see this stuff right here. So one of the things that we want to do, again, if we want our window to work like our wall, that's where we said. So a couple equations. Yesterday, what did we talk about with this right here? What did we talk about with this? Alex, what's a big deal about this right here?
Sorry, I'm driving. What are you pointing to exactly?
It's the outside chamber of a window that leads to the weep hole. That's
what's collecting all the water. So that's your quote unquote water management system.
Okay.
And so, especially if you do a retrofit install where you're just throwing a frame on top of a frame, you got expansion and contraction of the vinyl. Vinyl can crack, splinter, and all of a sudden the water that's in there is going in your knee wall.
Okay. So, and then if you got even the fiberglass one we talk about right here, what's the benefit? What's the disadvantage of this one? Since you're driving, let me see. Mark.
Hey, Dustin. Hey, I'm sorry. Dustin, I was just going to interject one thing that I used that you showed us yesterday on that piece.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that, they're the exact same. So that's how they're able to make a less expensive window. And then I compared it to Marvin. You got two different areas. How you explain that to us. So I just showed them my cutout with the vinyl window versus what Marvin does.
I love that. Right. So if you look at this extrusion and you look at this extrusion, what's different?
Yeah, that's a great takeaway right there. Just four of the same size, and they punch a hole in the bottom.
So what's the benefit to the manufacturer?
Well, you can just sit there and mass produce all the same size, and like I said, punch a hole in the bottom instead of building it, where you got the durability factor.
Yeah. So really the only difference between the bottom one, the rail, and the basically style on the rail is basically if I got my rail and my style, basically if I'm walking through there, the only difference is, right? The only difference is basically one has a weep hole punched in it and one does not. And if this one's on the lateral, which looks like this, and this one's on the bottom, which looks like this, it costs me the same amount of money to manufacture all four extrusions, which means that I don't have to basically set different lines or take extra precautions when I'm putting these together. I'm just making a miter cut and making the same piece over and over and over again, right? So one of the things we know is Mother Nature and science don't lie, right? So what is the disadvantage for having only this be your water management system? What's the disadvantage? Gary, that's an awesome takeaway. Thank you for picking that up, right? And same thing as this. If this looks like this, right? And obviously the cheaper the material, look how small that right there. Look how small that water management system is, right? And guess what? Here, there's that same water management system. Look how small that is. So when you look at that, why would that be a disadvantage, right? And if you pay a little more money, now you got a little larger water management system, right? So what's the benefit of having that? So again, we got one water management system. And if I flip it this way, I guess, then we got another one. So what's the benefit? Which one would you rather have out of these two? Just think like a gutter. Is a smaller gutter better or a bigger gutter better? Which is going to hold more? The bigger gutter, guys. Cynthia, tell me how to talk about that.
Sorry. Can you repeat the question? I'm still trying to gather all this.
What am I looking at?
That's the vinyl,
What's this?
the fiberglass.
That's your basically impervia fiberglass, right?
Right.
So we don't sell this piece of shit anymore. Okay, so here we go. What is the difference and why is a water management system that's inside better than outside? Or is it?
Well, I mean,
This is my water management system. All my water runs through my cavity and has to come out of this thing. It means all the water that this thing is holding can only set in this tiny little piece right here.
well,
this
what I say is that it can get clogged and start to build up in there and get, I won't try not to say mold, but that gets clogged. You can't get out the weep holes because the little weep holes are the only thing that's allowing water to escape, and they can get clogged with dust and moisture and animals and old mildew water.
Yeah, so it's pretty good, right? So the only thing this thing bears for is what?
What the only thing it bears for?
What is the reason this is here?
It's there. Well, for show. No.
Okay.
To get some of the water out.
What do you think this thing's made of?
Plastic.
Exactly right? And what happens to plastic in direct sunlight for long periods of time? What does UV rays do to plastic?
It corrodes and it melts and it gets brittle.
What happens to plastic in extreme heats?
It melts.
Well, it could be, yeah. Or it at least does what?
Expands.
What else does it do?
Disintegrates.
And what else does it do?
What's
What's it do before it does any of that?
Heats up. I mean,
If you had a plastic chair or a vinyl chair in the back of your house, those vinyl chairs, the white ones that are molded out with 4 legs on it. If the sun's been beating on that all day long, what would happen to that? Would it be sturdy or would it moisten and
it would weaken it,
Okay.
moisten, and I'm not sure what you're looking for. Sorry.
extreme heats? What happens to vinyl? Somebody help her out. What happens to vinyl in extreme heats? It moistens and
According to the Department of Energy, it warp chips, fades the product.
Yep. But what happens to plastic? Again, I need to get certain terminology in your mouth, right? I want to see if anyone knows that terminology. Janet, do you know? What happens to plastic in extreme heats?
Is it when it oh gosh damn it when it emits toxic gases?
We can do that, but it doesn't really matter on the outside of the house. That's a So vinyl or plastic does what in extreme heats?
Expands.
It expands, but what happens? What Mike? It moistens and softens in extreme heats, right?
What?
It moistens and softens in extreme heats. So if this plug that's setting here were to moisten and soften, right? What could eventually happen with this? What's going to happen to this little flap on here? You think that flap's going to last forever?
It'll fail.
Then what does that allow it to do? If I open this thing up, what happens? What's open
Then
there?
Dust can get in, and animals, and
Bugs.
it compromises the interior cavity of the window. Like
Okay.
water can get.
So if water can get through there and spiders and bugs can get in there, what else can get through there?
Air.
Air, right? So why would that be a disadvantage? What are we trying to stop from coming in the house?
Yeah, now I'm introducing something that is working against me and my energy efficiency.
So the very thing that's allowing water to get out is also allowing what to get in.
Hot and cold air.
Yes. So when you see broken ones of these, when you're walking around a house, what should you take a picture of? Come on, I just gave you the fucking answer. What do you take a picture of?
Take a picture of take a picture of the hole right there.
Oh my God. We have a fucking genius. I'm just kidding. All right. So we have basically right here, right? Yep. If that comes out, we need to be getting pictures of what, Scott?
Pictures of things that are failing.
So specifically, what am I talking about right now that would be failing?
The trap door there,
Yeah, the weep hole, right?
the weep hole cover.
Broken weep hole covers or weep
Right.
hole covers with no hole at all,
Right.
right? Because
We
again,
see
I'm
'em
trying to
with-
build a story.
Yeah, we see them without covers all the time.
Yeah, so you need to take pictures of it so you can show people when they're talking about getting new windows what that is. Especially if I got a weep hole cover and I got one that's this big. Wait, this big here? How long is it going to take for that to fill up?
And not very long.
How many of these do you think even come with weep holes? You've seen a lot of these taken out, Scott.
Yeah.
They punch a hole and it's an open hole, right? So
Right.
what comes out can also come back in. So why is that a big deal? Somebody tell me and sell me on the reason why that's a big deal.
Well, there's something else on top of all of this that I use as well. If look in the corner of your samples that you have there. Look at the corner on the outside where the weld is. Yeah, flip it around. So you're looking directly at the weld. A lot of times you will see that there's a hole or it's not completely welded through when you look at that.
Mhm.
So you can get water if there's a hole in there.
Look at
And the
that.
only thing that, all across the elbow there.
Wow.
What that can do is allow water that's supposed to be draining out of the weep hole. It's going to go past it right out of the frame, right into the wall of the house.
Okay. Now, why does that have anything to do with the weep hole?
Well, if the weep hole gets jammed up and it's not allowing the water to leak out, that water is eventually going to need to go somewhere.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but if something happens to this weld and you're introducing water into the frame, and that's the amount of water that it can take, where could that water end up going?
Right into the wall.
Okay. So why would you want to introduce water into your frame?
You don't.
So do you think it might be cheaper for me to make a window like this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So and then what's the disadvantage one more time?
All of the drawbacks that come with water infiltration into your home, dust infiltration into your home, air infiltration into your home, heat and cold infiltration into your home. Those are all the reasons not to do it.
Well, now if I go against a Milgard, let's say fiberglass window, right? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how to kick the shit out of other companies real quick, right? You want to do that? Sounds kind of fun. So let's talk about kicking the shit out of Pella or basically, Milgard. They carry a fiberglass window, right? So I take a fiberglass window and I have a weep hole. What am I scared of making happen? What is something you can't do in the corner of this fiberglass window? Can't do what? Can't weld the corners together. So why would that be a disadvantage if I'm introducing water? If I'm introducing water into my frame, why is that a disadvantage?
You're gonna have less of a tight seal.
Stapled and glued together inherently comes apart.
Say that again.
Anything stapled and glued together inherently comes apart.
Anything stapled or glued together inherently comes apart. I mean, let me ask you a question, Scott. Is there any time you've ever stapled or glued anything that you didn't have to restaple or glue?
I'm thinking. Couple pieces of paper, maybe. That's about it.
Yeah. And eventually, if there's enough tear, it'll give, right? So when we look at it, you're talking about water management system. A lot of times manufacturers are careless too. What I want to show you is, look, this is one of our samples that we had. If you notice, there's a little black thing that goes on that, right? That's like a washer. And that washer is like a rivet, right? What do you notice is missing on this one right here? That came from the factory for us to show as salespeople.
No washer.
No washer. So what do you think is going to happen? So, you know what they say on a roof, right? Who in here knows about roofing?
I do.
Okay. So if there's a exposed nail, one little tiny exposed nail that's got a little dinky head, right? About that size. And that nail doesn't have caulk over it. It's not covered by a shingle. What could happen?
Water's going to get in. That's why they use the little orange washers or grommets on the nails when they're roofing now, to make sure that the water doesn't infiltrate.
So if that's going to happen on a gigantic roof, if you got one window with a corner in it and water is designed to run through the frame down here out into the weep hole, if that didn't have a grommet, where's that going to leak?
Right there.
Where
Where the grommet's missing.
And where's that going to go?
Right into your wall. And then hopefully that crappy caulking job they did on the retrofit installation is perfect. And we all know caulking lasts forever. It doesn't crack or shrink or any of those things. That stops the water from getting into your walls and tearing up your insulation and your drywall and causing mold.
So
It's obviously, I'm being sarcastic there.
absolutely. So if this here, that exposed screw sets in here, where's that water going to go?
Right to the electrical outlet.
Right down here, right? So if you ever see basically where it looks like some mold, you know, in the fiberglass, when you touch the button, it shows the rotten knee wall. Does that make sense? Why?
Yep.
Because it gets down in the corner and crevice because you're introducing water inside the frame. Even though fiberglass is a strong material, it's not designed to have water running through it. If it was such a good material, why wouldn't they make it out of a gutter? Right? Why wouldn't they make gutters out of it? If you think about it, because this is acting like a gutter, right? So the challenge is when you have a weep hole, that's creating a weakness in the frame. Therefore, if I took water and poured it in here, it's going to leak right out the side, right? So again, that's why I got to make sure I'm knowing my difference, right? And if you look at the finish on this, it looks like duct tape, right? The finish looks like duct tape. Okay, the finish looks like duct tape. So again, because again, they're just painting it in a paint booth, okay? And then literally like heat drying it. That's how that works, right? If you do the Milgard one, same exact thing, same weep holes, right? Same canals on same canal on it. And the only difference is they basically, instead of a powder coat, they basically use a gel coat. And with a gel coat, what do you got to do on a gel coat? If you take your boat and every time you take your boat out on the water and you come back, what do you got to do to your boat? You got to wipe it all down. And then at least once a month, if not twice a month, you need to wax it and seal it. And if you don't wax and seal, what happens to it? Gel coat peels off. Then what is it exposed to? Raw fiberglass. And what happens to raw fiberglass when it gets hit with the sun? Spider cracks. What else does it do? It off gases. Those little coils in there. You ever been around some like a hallway or basically if you got the wall, if you have no drywall on there, you walk by fiberglass, it has a smell. And when it heats up, that smell comes out, right? That's why they put paper on the inside of the fiberglass to stop off gassing, right? It will eventually off gas, but if it's exposed, it will off gas like crazy. So the challenge is when you look at this, right? You're looking at the frames. The biggest thing to make a big deal on is what if we look at this frame, what is the biggest deal here and here that I need to make sure make absolute and utter sense? Janet, what would that be?
What's the question again? Sorry.
Well, if I'm trying to make a big deal about what we talked about today so far, what is the biggest deal I'm talking about that makes the most sense that if you're thinking about it from a customer standpoint, sounds almost ignorant?
What? To have the weep holes?
Why is that a disadvantage?
Because of everything that we just talked about, you know, it can soften.
Tell me how to present it.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, Dustin, like as you can see here, that these windows have weep holes, and you know everything that we've talked about today. What's important to remember is that these weep hole covers can soften and they can moisten, and then they can get stuck and they can get caught, and everything can get caught. So let's just pretend like this hole is just completely corroded and covered with dirt. It's got bugs that are coming in, and the water is sitting inside the frame. Well, water is not designed to stay in these frames. You can't leave it in these frames. It's got to go somewhere, right? And if it can't get out the channel it's supposed to get out, the weep hole, where do you think the water is going to go? It's going to end up in your home. It's either going to end up behind the stucco or it's going to end up behind the drywall. And by the time you see that there's a problem, it's going to be too late. And then you have a structural engineering project on your hands. Something like that.
Well, it's not too bad. Not too bad for a first shot. Who else has one that you want to talk about on that? Because this little thing, remember, elephants don't bite, mosquitoes do. So who else has like one they want to talk about with this? Because this is what we fight up against all the time, right? It's this piece of shit. We got our vinyl, right? Why is that a bad idea? Why is that a bad idea? Why is this? Putting that window over another window, why is that a bad idea? Somebody tell me. Listen, this is me putting pressure on this, right? What do you notice? What do you notice happens? If there's a weep hole here and a weep hole here, and there's weight of the glass here, and this bends in, where's the water going to run to?
The center of the frame.
And then where's that water going to?
It's going to end up behind the wall or behind the stucco.
Where's it going to get stuck?
Where's it what?
Where's the water getting stuck?
It's getting stuck in the middle of that frame, and it's sitting in there like a reservoir, and it's got to go somewhere. And if it can't get out the channel it's supposed to get out, water's got to get out somehow. It's not going to stay sitting there.
As the water sits there and eventually collects where it sits, even on vinyl, what's it going to create? And you can say the word right here.
Mold.
And do you guys have allergies?
Yeah, sure. I have allergies.
How could you use that? Come on, guys. How can you think about clearly, right? I've been talking about windows forever. What is that going to create? If there's mold setting in the frame, so in this cavity, if I've opened it up and there's mold where my weep hole's over here, there's mold setting inside the frame here, and there's an internal channel right here where water comes back, or where basically air can come back out of it. What am I going to be breathing inside my house?
Spores.
Spores, right?
Mold spores.
Mold spores. There we go. So then basically, how is that affecting me inside my house?
Well, it's dangerous. I mean, if you have kids, and you can get sick from it. You don't want your kids being exposed to mold, do you?
No, and secondly, right here, right? They tell you that self-maintenance, cleaning out debris inside your windows, part of the maintenance that can void the warranty. Ask me this. How are you going to get in there and clean that out?
You can't.
You know, really what you're buying when you buy a window like this, it's plastic and pipe cleaners. Because the type of stuff they put on, there's pipe cleaners. Wool pile weathership, you get the pipe clean. Literally, you're spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on plastic and pipe cleaners to have that big of a water management system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So even on this, How do I clean this out in here if I've got this on here?
You can't.
And if this breaks off, here, let me help you. Oh, it broke. If this breaks off, how do I get in there and clean that out?
You can't.
So what happens to my warranty?
It voids it.
Misuse, neglect, and misuse and abuse. Would that be considered neglect and misuse and abuse if I don't clean that out?
Yes.
How am I going to get in there and do that? Imagine this. We live in Southern California, right? You ever seen one of those spiders you don't want inside your house? What if one's living in your canal? See this piece? Suddenly, oh my gosh, what's that? I've got an open canal coming right up through this that's going to get through my frame. And if I look in here, I can see daylight, right? Oh, starting to learn some shit about windows, aren't we? Okay. And that misuse and abuse. Now I have this piece, which is stomped out. So now I've got something where a bug can crawl right up through this, right up into my house. And the only thing keeping it is this little plastic trap that gets snapped right here into the bottom of it. Now I have ants and I have things crawling right around there. Isn't that amazing?
Even you've got your preparation of the house with AC and heat.
Erector set. Get a erector set.
So what happens is basically because I have to make one hole, I've got to make multiple pieces to cover that hole up. If not, it goes. And this piece right here, if you see this, is a canal where water runs in, back down through the hole, which they punched literally they punched the only thermal break right here. And that thermal break then runs out of this canal into this canal out to the outside. So water is running throughout the entire frame. So what's the insulation value of this seal? 0. You don't have a thermal break. So what heat is going to transfer right through this sweep hole, offsetting all that money you just paid. And if I had this frame stuck in here like this, you'll never know the difference. All I'm looking at is a pretty window, and I can talk about all the positive things, not the negative things. That makes sense? So Scott, what did I just show there?
So you're showing that there is an open canal basically running from the outside of the house to the inside of the house, that anything that can get through the trap door can get into your house. So you're losing your cooling air out through those holes, and you're losing your heating in through those holes. And any little critter that can make itself that small has found itself a nice little warm habitat.
So the only thing keeping Mother Nature outside your house is this piece of plastic, right? That moistens in soft and extreme heats, right? Dries out, becomes brittle and colds. That's it. That is Mother Nature and science right there at its best work, right?
That's if it has a trap door.
That's if it has a trap door, but it had already broken off, right? So yesterday we talked about this piece, right? Which is what? What's this piece called? Mark Lance. What's this piece called? Mark Lance. What is this piece called?
I'm here. The bottom sill.
What's this piece called right here?
It's a strip that holds the glass into the frame itself.
What's it called?
The name escapes me right now. Sorry.
Fucking glazing bead. I've been talking
Glazing.
about
There you go.
fucking days. The glazing bead. Pay the fuck attention. You want to work here, pay the fuck attention. I'm not doing this for my own fucking job. You do it for your fucking job. Pay attention. Glazing bead. Learn it. You better fucking know it tomorrow. Okay, weep hole right here. Weep hole. This basically weep hole is a piece of plastic that keeps it out. Why is it that I would spend the time talking about this today and not wasting my own breath? Tell me what's the benefit of how I would sell against another window that has a glaze that has basically a weep hole.
Well, it's one of the hugest differences that we have with our product. It's a huge selling advantage. We don't have a weep hole.
No, and we don't need it. So we've got two thermal breaks that actually allow the water management system, and we can manipulate our seal to be anything from a 1 degree to a basically 12 degree plus. We're not stuck like even RBA, which is a 12 degree slope seal. We can adjust the slope of the seal based on what we're trying to accomplish. So if the window's sloped, we can slope this seal up. If it's flat, we can flatten it and put a little bit of bend to it. So again, we have built in basically the water management system the correct way. So we know the water, when it hits out the window, is running out. We're not introducing any water inside of our window. So the biggest difference to that is what?
Well, that's going to impact three things. When you're talking about balanced engineering, that has a direct impact on appearance, performance, and durability. For appearance, it's going to create a narrower frame profile, allowing for more glass, which almost everybody is unanimously going to agree is more attractive on the house. Performance-wise, it's going to allow less transfer of heat and cold back and forth, making it more efficient. And durability-wise, you're keeping that water and mold and everything else that is going to break down that product over time from infiltrating in there.
Okay. So if I'm going to use what I just learned today about a weep hole, how in the fuck am I going to inspect the window to make that relevant? How am I going to inspect the window to make that relevant? Mark, recover. How am I going to inspect the window to make the weep hole relevant? What am I going to talk about in the inspection so that way I can sell this fucking project today? And I don't have to say here another, well, let me think about it. I'm going to get another couple estimates. How do I remove that objection out with what we just learned today and even yesterday?
The water management system to keep it out of the wall. When you got weep holes, there's a flaw in the system. If that water gets backed up in the frame, it could potentially go down into the wall, and then you've got a lot more major expense involved.
Okay. So if I'm going to build a weep hole, if I have a weep hole in my frame, what does it mean as a manufacturer that I've done?
You've compromised the actual frame.
I compromised the frame. Number one, yes, absolutely, Cynthia. Great job, because now they no longer have a thermal break, right? Because they punched right through both thermal breaks. There's nothing stopping hot to cold transfer. Second thing is, Mike, what'd you say? They cut costs. They cut costs, so it's going to be cheaper to do it that way. But even though it's cheaper that way, what's the disadvantage, Jessica? I know you're a bath rep, but I love that you're on here.
Thank you. What's the disadvantage of the weep hole?
Yeah,
I mean, it makes it less. It weakens the integrity of the frame.
I love it. You're right. So the only thing that's protecting you once you have a weep hole is what, Cynthia?
The only thing that's protecting you or the window?
Well, the customer, because that's what the window's protecting the customer.
The only thing that's protecting the customer is that little crap piece of plastic.
Ah, yeah, right. This thing right here. I'm going to leave this right here on this table so everyone wants to grab it can have it. The second thing is this. Mike, you got something you want to say? Go ahead. I don't want.
Even with a weep hole, and then you showed underneath on the frame that you have a slit for water that gets in the rail to get through. Even if they're pumping AC in their house and it now has a way for it to get out, what do you think's happening day in and day out? When you turn on your AC, yeah, your glass is energy efficient, but what's happening around that frame to lose your efficiency?
Yeah, that's just one part of it, right?
You figure how many windows you have with how many slits you have in there, pressurize the house, air is always going to find
Do you think that's 1/16 of an inch? You think that's a 16th inch gap? So if you look at it, really, we have no competition, guys. The only competition is price. And once you explain people things that they need to know, and I'm looking at inspection, let me just give you some advice, right? You need to be going out to, or when you're inspecting the outside of every house, you need to be looking for internal water management systems and making it sound like the worst thing on the face of the earth. You need to be looking at broken flaps on here, right? So when this flap that I broke off with my finger comes off of there, Mother Nature and science don't lie, guys. You know, there's no way that a space like this is intended to keep out all the water management system. And if you're an idiot, which means you don't know what you don't know, and you think all windows are equal, and you let this little tiny thing here that my finger's on be your water management system, then what do you think is going to happen? You think good stuff can happen from that? I don't care if you pay half my price or a quarter my price. You would have to be stupid to put something like that in. Wouldn't you agree with that? Make it the no-brainer, right? So when you think of these things we're talking about, right, and how do they hide their inefficiencies? They cover it up with plastic. Hey, you know what? Damn, dude, that looks ugly. Oh my God, what are we gonna do? Hey, we gotta make a molding piece, man. Let's make this molding piece, and we'll just slide this right in here. That'll go over that. They'll never know, right? Then next thing you know, you got a window that's leaking air around the window because it's coming back to the weep hole. Once this big boy here breaks off, and I promise you, this in Southern California, remember, 10 minutes of sunlight's the same as how long in the Midwest? 10 minutes of sunlight's the same as how long in the Midwest?
An hour.
Hour and a half. Okay? Hour and a half. So 10 minutes of sunlight's the same as an hour and a half in the Midwest. So how do I use that to my benefit when I'm inspecting? I need to be looking for water management on the walls, talking about the weep screed underneath, talking about how important water management is. Now you're giving up the gutter that's in this window that's no longer working, and you're replacing it with, you're going from basically a 4.5 inch gutter down to a 2 inch gutter. Does that even make sense? I'm going from a 4.5 inch gutter to a 1/4 inch gutter. Does that even make sense? Think about it, right?
No.
You look at the thickness of their old frame, and now you're replacing it with that and that's covering it up. Are you really putting yourself in a better position? Is it worth the money? Sounds pretty stupid now that you start breaking it apart, doesn't it? So let's bake it up one more time. What's the benefit of this window? What's the benefit of this window? If I look at this thing, now I'm going to talk about the advantages on why this is a no-brainer. From what we talked about today, what's the no-brainer?
It doesn't have a weep hole. It's got a slope sill.
Yep, so there's no internal water management, right? It's got a slope sill, no weep holes. Scott, what else? Look at this thing. From what we talked about yesterday, how we were protecting the glass, which is the most important part. Because guess what? If all glass was good, that's fine. But if the framing that protects it isn't good, how long is the glass going to be good? So how am I protecting my insulation? How am I protecting my insulation? How am I protecting my insulation? Tell me. First off, Mark Lance, give me one thing on this. How am I protecting my insulation?
Through the slope cell water management system, and incorporate that with the edge deleting as far as how the windows seal itself. Two big advantages.
Okay. Now, what's another one that protects my insulation of my glass from yesterday? Alex, you can be driving and answer this one.
Yeah, the warm edge technology to where one is sealed first and then the other one is sealed behind it. And the thermoset so that it's in a vacuum chamber, and we're actually building the frame around the glass.
Okay, so there's no what?
So there's no glazing bead. So we can get you the idea with Marvin being the wood manufacturer of decades is to get you the same great, beautiful look of the old wood windows without compromising.
So what's a question I need to ask the homeowner here? After I explain all that stuff, what do I need to ask the homeowner to put that shit to bed so it never comes back up again?
So given the choice between the vinyl window and all its failures with this total management water management system, and the advantages of just having gravity and Mother Nature do the trick with us and not introducing any water into the frame, which one makes more sense to you?
No, don't even say that. Here, let me give you a better word track. Anyone got a better word track than that?
Would you ever consider putting in a window system with a glazing bead and an internal water management system?
Okay, say that again.
Would you ever consider, after everything that we shared, a window system with a glazing bead and an internal water management system?
So it sounds like to me, no matter what the cost, you wouldn't put a window in that has a glazing bead or an internal water management system that depends on this piece of plastic. So literally what you do is you just pay thousands of dollars to be protected by two pieces of plastic, right? So let me ask you a question, guys. Real quick, because we know we want to keep this in the window, right? The insulation. Is there any, after we talked about the no glazing bead, right? And how we actually connect the window together that goes around the glass. We talk about the water management system, the no weep holes. We talked about the thermoset, which is the Ultrex material. Is there anything you guys can think of that we could have done to protect your glass and do any better job for what you guys got going on here in the house? Is there anything we could have done better to protect you in your house out there? Is there anything you could think of? No. Sounds like everything. So great. So it sounds like to me then when it comes time for long-term happiness, because remember, these windows affect you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This is both a inside and an outside remodel, right? So is there anything else I left out that's important, guys? I just want to make sure that I covered everything, right? I think we covered air infiltration, water management, covered the wrong ways to do it. Sound like we got everything covered? Cool. So let me ask you a question then. If there's nothing else you're looking for when it comes time, this is the window system you need and want to take care of the problems at your home, right? Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on here. So we got to make sure it's done. And how many times you do it? Just once, right? Okay. Now realize, do you think it's more expensive to build the frame around the glass or the glass to go in the frame? What you realize is from today is most windows are designed for, remember, mass manufacturing. And if mass manufacturing isn't developed for specific problems, then it's not going to address the fundamental reasons on why your windows have failed in the first place, right? And in 2021, with the technology the way it is, you want to make sure you're up to date, not just throwing something in because it's a cheap fix. That's why both of those materials, you'll find they're sold at the box stores. They're sold at lumber yards. They're sold at basically any of your little Chuck in the Truck or crappy $189, whatever these crappy companies are, right? There's a reason why they only trust materials like Infinity with companies like Dreamstyle. Does that make sense? So guys, great. I'm going to show you the glass pack, right? But before that goes, I know the glass pack's going to absolutely knock your socks off. Sounds like to me, as long as the money makes sense, that's the only reason we can't run your business today. Is that correct? Boom. Janet, what's the takeaway today?
So much stuff. One of the things is really nailing down my word tracks for each one of these and being very specific. But and also there's tons of branching questions, like even just on a weep hole and how important that little hole is and the difference between that and a sloped sill. I know a lot of that information, but the way you described it is much better. And I need to work on, getting that word track out to where it makes the most sense to the customer and not getting too technical or too, out of their league or whatever. Not that I could, but I really like the word tracks you used today. It was really good.
Well, thank you. So so you got to work on that, right? That's your takeaway?
Yeah.
Because again, we want to keep getting better every day. Adam, I know you're Bass. Thanks for showing. What's the takeaway? I mean, because you can use some of this stuff even on your side with your product lines.
Well, first, I think I learned more today about weep holes than I ever thought I would. So that's, and definitely know what a glazing bead is. But it's just about knowing your product, knowing the ins and outs, and being able to have a masterful inspection by looking at their product and seeing how we can kill it with ours and how we have a superior product.
Yeah, there you go. You're the only, if you do it correctly, you're the only person that can truly solve their problems. That's how you want to be. You're truly the only person that can really solve their problem. And that's what I'm showing you. You're not fighting against other companies and other products. You're fighting against them and doing nothing at all. That's really what you're fighting. The other products are irrelevant. All right, Alex, take away today.
Yeah, great stuff. I think the overall takeaway for me was, water management, energy efficiency. Sometimes we look at them as two different parts of the pieces. And like little aha moment for me today was how water management is a huge part of impacting your energy efficiency. That they're hand in hand, they're tied in together, and they're not separate things. And that's even more of a big reason why the water management part of it is a big deal, because you're compounding problems now, you know what I mean, like in the wrong direction. So that was kind of the overall feedback for me on that. And then just a nice little soft price conditioner. Once you're getting your tie down, to say, don't you think it's cheaper to do it like this? Don't you think it's cheaper to do it this way? And if you get enough of those yeses along the way, they're understanding that, okay, it's not going to be cheap, right? We're going in the other direction.
You're taking the words out of their mouth.
Yeah, correct. I like the plastic pipe cleaners, little one-liner. That's a nice little punch right there to use. And just the conviction, you called it a piece of shit a few times, to where you understand that it's just a piece of shit. So that was my takeaway from today.
Chad, Mr. Shower, thank you for being on, buddy. What was the takeaway you had today?
It's kind of the same thing. I guess I'll echo, add a little bit, but just this whole thing about value, creating that value, the urgency with the value versus the cost. Because if you create the urgency through the inspection, that price should be the issue. And we're not always the cheapest, like you said, but we're the best, and we're the best. And that sometimes comes through, where sometimes we're just trying to undersell sometimes, or we're trying to, get the lowest cost in there, and that doesn't work. People don't see the value in that. Yeah.
Cool. Cynthia, take away today.
I think it's just getting more of this languaging. Like, every day we do this, I get a little bit more of a tidbit, like just, that sort of molding inside the track, and the plastic of the weep hole, and how that, we have this like apparently strong window with just this little plastic weep hole. I mean, it's just different because I've been selling weep holes. Like that's an advantage. Now I see like the disadvantage of it. And, it's working because even the sale I had yesterday, though, it ended up being vinyl. Like she was terrified to put vinyl in her house by the end. And, she was like an older woman on Social Security. So we ended up doing vinyl, but I feel like I'm really able to speak to the advantages of this, and just learning more about it. So it's like a ton of takeaways, but just basically starting to really understand why this product is so much better.
There we go. Good stuff. But Alan.
Yeah, I mean, so, I kind of always try to look things through a client's eyes or a customer's eyes when you're walking through it. And if you just kind of glaze over and point at a weep hole and talk about how that, manages water, that may not be bad. But if you really, not explain it, but get them involved to understand that small little problem is a design flaw, a weak engineering, a shoddy craftsmanship problem that can lead to, massive other issues because we don't know what we can't see sometimes, or we don't know what we don't know. And if you really go through that, they feel the pain, and then you compound on that by taking a weak engineered product and then multiplying that problem by a weak installation process, i.e. retrofit. You're just creating cause and effect, one problem after another. That's why 30 to 40% of retrofit weak designed windows are having to be replaced in 5 years. So it's a huge problem, but they've got to understand that, and you've got to walk them through each piece of that, yeah, it's a little hole, and that's how they manage their water, but it leads to everything else that you discussed today.
Yeah, very good. All right. Now these 2 next days, I'll pop up on there. You gotta excuse my vulgar language, but there's enough good nuggets inside of it. So, Janet, take away today.
I already went. I was first.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. I've already forgot.
Is that not memorable?
Wasn't, just kidding. Now I remember it. You popped down on my list. All right, Jess.
Yes, I'm learning a lot about weep holes today, but like comparable to bathrooms, like why is it a bad idea to just put acrylic right over tile, or do a bath fitters installation? Why is that a bad idea? Why is that bad for water management?
Well, you got the right idea. That's stuff we're trying to get out. Now you can relate anything to the product line you sell. That's what I'm saying. The stuff I hit, I can relate the same things no matter what. And we'll do baths the same way as we do windows.
Mm-hmm.
I want to spend time on windows. We need to get our closing ratio up. All right, Scott.
So this will be really cool to add to my picture book that I'm building. I have pictures of vinyl windows that have failed in the corners and allowed that water track behind the weep holes to build up mold and mildew and everything else. So going through all of this description, backed up with the pictures that I have, I should have it built up in the next week or 2. I think it's going to be really powerful to go together.
Yeah. I mean, pictures of gaps in your, as basically Alex says, gaposis in your glazing beads, basically stuff growing out of your water management systems, your basically weep holes, different things like that nature. The more pictures you have, the more dangerous your arsenal will be. Okay. That's the cool thing about pictures. The picture says 1,000 words, and you can say it all day long, but if you show a picture with it, or you got one of these little things, it makes a lot of sense to people. But if you just bring this thing in and you don't explain where it goes, it's worthless. Okay. Mark, take away today.
Glazing beads. No, the takeaway is just the water management system and how that water is held in a channel in a vinyl window, and also the fiberglass windows, and where it's much different than that with the Infinity by Marvin with the slope cell. Does a lot better job more efficiently over time.
Okay. So remember, all that stuff is great stuff, but if we don't tie it back to the paint in their current window, we are just basically Vanna White. We're Vanna Whitening it. We're just talking about how good we got it and how much better we are than everybody else, not why it's relevant to them in their situation, right? Why is what we're talking about relevant to them in their situation? Because once we figure that out, we're done. We got them right where we want them. Because remember, a window they don't just need a window every now and then. They need a window that affects them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You don't even think about your tires if you have a problem with your tires, right? You don't even think about a stain on your carpet. You don't even think about your carpet. You got a stain on your carpet. You don't even think about your flooring until there's a buckle in your flooring, right? So you just think about the things in life that we pay attention to and don't. So don't allow them to get situational awareness and think it's all there. Get your you saw how I use the kill pieces, right? I use the kill pieces almost more than I use my own piece. So figure out how to make that architect and move forward. So again, at the end of it, you're the no-brainer. All right. That guy said, we'll see you on the board. Thanks for all you do. Again, good day yesterday. Let's keep it up. And again, we'll see you on the board. With that, who do you think gonna beat so cat?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Nobody.